mean that we are not working to find every possible way to address concerns, i.e. the community forum that will be taking place very soon, as Ms. Wright already referenced.
Ms. Jason?
Yes, Ms. Dole.
So just a follow-up, and it's to Ms. Baker's comment. From others that are more advantaged to give to Seth Boyden, which is less advantaged and more needy. And that's kind of the value conversation that we've been having, where, you know, that's something that we hope that everyone will support, that if there is more identified need in any given place, you know, at the moment maybe it's Seth Boyden for the social worker, but whatever it is, that if we need to shift resources so they're not equitably, well, they're not equally distributed, they're equitably distributed, that subtle difference, but important difference, that's our mindset. And it's really up to, you know, administration is the one we say, from a value perspective, we need equitable distribution so that students' needs are being met. And administration is the one that needs to look at all the needs throughout the district from all the different players and decide how many social workers are there, how many high school teachers are there, how many paraprofessionals are there, and distribute it to best meet the needs of all students. So I think we need to understand that that's really the message that we are giving, and there may be pushback, but that's where I'm coming from. I don't know if that's where everybody's coming from, but
okay. Thank you.
I think I want to make a comment just to
okay.
you know, maybe close it up and just say to the parents and to the Seth Boyden community that the thing that's most impressive to me is the hard work that the parents are putting in, trying to raise funds, trying to do the best that they can. And I just know that hard work pays off, and good things are coming to Seth Boyden. And that you can weather a storm and not be on the focus list and have kids doing the things that they need to do. Kudos to the staff, to the administration, to the parents, and everyone involved. And all of us here understand that, and I want you to know that you are recognized. We understand the hard work that you're putting in. And listen, it's not easy. So I appreciate it. And we're on this. We are on it.
I just want to add, as we're having this conversation as a community, that we have to look, as we're looking at different resources, to see what kind of shifts that we may need to do, that we remember when we take away from one to help another, it doesn't mean that we're reducing something else. What it means is that we are trying to help. When we help one group, it only lifts up our district on a whole. And I think that that's the mindset that we always need to have and remember. By lifting up one group, we can only lift up our district as a whole. And I hope that that's something everyone remembers as we're having that conversation for Seth Boyden. And we do hear you, Seth Boyden. We know you've been on the road, and so we do hear you. So thank you for bringing your issues to the board.
Are we going to be able to get out of here by 9:15?
Whether this helps or not, just let me follow up on a comment or two by noting Title I funding. Title I funding is an important source of federal aid, and it's specifically designed for schools that pass a certain threshold. I believe, 20% free and reduced is a threshold. And beyond that, there are interesting issues on which perhaps we need more illumination from the administration, whether right now or in a subsequent meeting, and more discussion on standards. In other words, the board might weigh in on the policy or value issues involved, as opposed question of one school being at 21%, another school being at 43%. Is that relevant under the federal formula, under how Title I funds are designed to be allocated? How much discretion does a district have? To what degree are there values issues that a board can and should weigh in on? These are all questions that I think are significant, and I want to raise them in a positive spirit without there being the idea that I or the rest of us are going to go on for hours about it tonight, because I really do urge us to think about Title I as a way that helps that the federal government, whatever one thinks of federal programs and the low level of federal aid and state aid for that matter that we get, yes, we do get some, Title I is specifically designed to deal, in many respects, with exactly the kind of things we're talking about tonight. So I urge us to bear that in mind in our discussions going forward. If there's anything the administration wants to clarify on Title I in terms of what I've said, I'd welcome that. Is there anything? The 20% threshold?
I mean, basically right, there's a threshold at 20 and then there's another one at 40, but bottom line is that those funds do enable us to give more reading intervention to both, Clinton and Seth Boyden and other resources. So it's a matter of looking at it, being creative with what we can do to ensure that we're meeting the needs of those kids that really need the support.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Grierson.
I do have one more question regarding
Yes.
Title I fund. Who, maybe if you can elaborate, or I don't know if you can, who decides how the funds are spent exactly?
Well, I do, along with the other, with Ms. Schneider and the rest of the senior leadership team. I mean, look at what we're allocated and then make decisions based on need. There are guidelines to follow. It's very heavily regulated, but bottom line, that's how we allocate the funds.
And it's a process when the funds are allocated to an individual school. Then Ms. Grierson works very closely with the administration of that school to decide what the best way is to spend it at that building for the school year.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Schneider and Ms. Grierson. Okay. We have always, including in, excuse me, Mr. Bennett.
Sorry, I arrived late, so I missed seeing the slideshow, but could you go to the slide where you show like the big cost drivers for next year?
I'm sorry.
A slide where you show like, how much our salaries are increasing, our healthcare increasing, our out-of-district tuition. Is there a slide like that?
I had the comparison.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. Just kind of want to say something. First of all, of course, I support greater resources for Seth Boyden. Transferring if necessary, and even actually going above 2%. But and of course, cutting, various other, really discretionary programs. But I just want to say something like big picture. Even if we found like $300,000 for the Spanish teachers in the elementary schools, like we did, even if we found a few other tens of thousands of dollars, $100,000 to restore all cuts somehow, we would still be at the same point next year that we're at now, where all these good programs are on the chopping block. And, it's just really worrisome to think about where the district is going to be in 5, 10, or 15 years. Actually, when my child, who's now a toddler, is in high school, what's the district's financial state going to be? And that's actually even if, the state doesn't force us to pay for teacher retirement benefits. I do think that tuition, this year we kind of had a let up in the increase in health insurance. It even dropped. That's not to continue. I do think we have to look at tuition expenses. I know that not everyone's going to support this, but there is a bill pending in Trenton that would cap tuition increases for out-of-district private schools at 2%. Maybe 2% is too low, but it shouldn't be 10% per year, which is what we're getting now. That's completely unsustainable. And I hate to say this, but it's obviously causing cuts to in-district special education too. In-district special education has had a lot of cuts in the last few years, and it's not sustainable. Nothing is. So I think that we, with the little power we have, little influence, we should actually have kind of a resolution season. We should think about a resolution against local assumption of retiree benefits. That will sink us. And I think we should get behind the bill in Trenton, which would have some kind of cap for tuition increases for out-of-district expenses.
Great idea.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Okay. Anybody else? Then, if not, it's back to the public. This is the informal second public speaks in which you can react to anything we've been saying or following up, or if there's anybody new, please come on up, state your name and town, and say your piece. As usual, try to be brief, the 3 minutes, etc. Okay, the elementary school policy.
Ms.
Yes,
Schneider
indeed.
to read this, but I'll read it to you
Fine.
just so it's
You
clear.
bet.
The statement has been that you're going to try to keep class sizes low at Seth Boyden next year, implying that they were low this year. In fact, if you look at the sheet on the wall of the secretary to the principal that shows how many pieces to deliver to each class for the backpacks, you'll find out that all of the class section sizes were at their maximums this year. And given the resourcing you're specifying for the elementary schools and the kids moving up, they will all be at their maximums next year. And I would contend that that's in violation of your own policy, as well as flaunting the requirements of the resourcing model of the SFRA. And I'd hope that you'd have a discussion about that. And notwithstanding Ms. Lawson-Muhammad's comments about looking for putting some programmatic secret sauce back into Seth Boyden, the question is, I'm speaking mainly on behalf of the teachers who are just making a heroic effort and not fully succeeding and burning themselves out. I'm suggesting you go to the high school. The high school's a great place, but you can find $400,000 or $500,000 in the high school that is very arguably not T&E, and take those resources in terms of people, and maybe you have to get different people, and put them in Seth Boyden. Use the 2 extra rooms you have and make section sizes smaller than the class size maximum in first and second grade. Strong support in all of the educational literature for that. And use the remaining money and put extra people into other classrooms as needs dictate. And I would read from policy in the time remaining to me. In certain circumstances, the superintendent shall have the authority to make specific exceptions to the above rules for individual classes. In determining an exception, the superintendent shall give consideration to unique student abilities and or disabilities, the teacher's strength and level of experience, the amount and variety of support staff, the availability of classrooms, classroom size, the potential for disruption to an ongoing class size average per grade level, and the financial condition of the school district. What this, your own language, gets at is that when there are kids with lots of extra needs in the class, and as Seth Boyden, half to 2/3 of every class are kids on free and reduced lunch, creates a huge burden on the classroom teacher. I know you all know that, and so I don't intend to lecture you, but the question, this is where, at budget time, where priorities must be weighed, and I would contend, not trying to dispute Mr. Eastman, with the budget you are giving us, can you meet the stated needs of the students? Can you make progress on the board and district goals that we have articulated? Can you comport with the board policy that has been the law of the district? And finally, is the budget you're proposing to us consistent with state law and the rights of those students? And I would contend that it's Seth Boyden. The level of need is there, and I'll give you back my discuss this. Ask the administration, come back on Monday night and tell you where they would dollars at the high school to put into additional headcount at Seth Boyden for next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Latz. Anyone else? Dr. Williams.
My name is Dion Williams, and I reside in Maplewood, New Jersey. Good evening. When I first came to Maplewood about 30 years ago, I was 26, and my accountant said to get a 3-story mixed-use property near my house so I could do my surgery, have my child, have some place for the nanny to live, and he said that would be a really great thing. And so I found a place, 1787 Springfield Avenue, and at that time on Springfield Avenue, you could not finance mixed-use properties. We didn't